A quiet night at Fairmont Crest is just the thin layer of mist before a new day full of secrets. On Thursday, October 23, 2025, Beyond the Gates opens with a rare breath of peace between Smitty and Martin, renewing their vows while navigating the rules of their new normal. They seem to have moved away from the brink, but remarriage comes with its own set of challenges. How can they keep the fire burning while the old trauma lingers? And how can they keep their love from repeating the same habits that drove them apart? Meanwhile, in a hidden corner, Haley bets on her secret mission, believing it will be worth it. But will the reward be the key to freedom or a door to the abyss? Meanwhile, Tomas and Cat's intimate night ends not with fireworks, but with a surge of emotions ranging from excitement, confusion, and a hard truth. When the heart skips a beat, all definitions of the right person are shaken, and Tyrell, caught between desire and hesitation, gets one piece of advice from June that changes the course of his life. Join us as we peel back the layers. Will Smitty and Martin maintain their composure or reveal more vulnerability? Is Haley's mission a way out or a trap of her own making? What will Tomas and Cat's night leave behind that will haunt the morning? And what advice from June will force Tyrell to choose courage over safety? Subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll get started now. Fairmont Crest seemed to inhale a new breath the moment news of Smitty and Martin's engagement drifted through manicured rose gardens and along mirrored, ice-cold walls. Everything that had felt closed at the brink of collapse suddenly turned back, abrupt and defiant. People watched two men who had once stood on the edge of despair try to return to ordinary things. Making a simple breakfast, fixing the door lock that had stuck for ages, rehanging the family photo they'd taken down in anger. Yet in that sweetness lingered the scent of long fractured days, an indescribable note that was equal parts release and an aftershock not yet settled. Smitty knew better than anyone how close he had come to the cliff by letting pride and suspicion blind the path, while Martin had absorbed the hollow chill of a home without voices, where everything remained in its place but the soul of it was gone. So when the chance appeared like a thin seam of light, they seized it with both hands, even if that light might strip bare the dark corners they had avoided for so long. Smitty's unexpected initiative, the way he forced himself to set aside wounded pride and step forward, left Martin astonished. The second proposal was offered like a ritual of cleansing, simple yet weighted with a vow that had once cracked. They gave trust back to each other with the understanding that no happiness stays durable by default without the discipline of the heart, without the courage to face one's own mistakes and fragility. The joy was warm, but not blind, and because of that it hurt. Both knew that stepping through this door meant there was no retreat to old excuses. In the exhilaration of belonging again, Smitty quietly feared the shadow of the man he had been, selfish, quick to defend, quick to flare when threatened. In the embrace that held him whole, Martin still shivered, remembering the long nights he coaxed sleep from the hum of the air conditioner, asking why love sometimes becomes a narrow cage. But this time, both were determined to hold on tight, as though each finger were an anchor hook pulling them out of the old whirlpool, rebuilding the bridge between two shores without waiting for a miracle. While their home was being mended with patient stitches, another blade was being honed in the dark. Haley, exhausted by sharing Bill's gaze with the ghosts of his past, chose to flee her insecurity through an investigation as sweet as honey and as sticky as a snare. She built herself a story so rational it was chilling. To live peacefully, you need money. To be safe, you must hold the keys to the safe. To step out from the shadow of another woman, you must bolt the door she could use to return. She pressed those arguments into her palms like pasted notes. Whenever guilt made her hands tremble, she opened them and read, reminding herself that those with an exit can forgive, but those backed into a corner have only one direction: forward. Randy, the cousin with a smile that never reached his eyes, became the silent shadow at her side, a machine for cleaning traces and laying remote system traps. They dug through secret accounts, cross-checked ambiguous life insurance contracts, and traced paths to nameless transfers. The cogs of the scheme turned so smoothly that Haley began to feel comfortable in the role she played. She was praised whenever Bill, busy, missed dinner, whenever his stare drifted far away to call up an old habit, and each time, she secretly added another line to the asset map, promising herself that once she crested this final hill, she would quit, wash her hands of it, and live as an ordinary woman grateful for peace. The problem is that peace demands honesty as its first condition, and she had chosen to rewrite the truth from the start. Dany, with a blade-sharp intuition that seemed to smell the metallic hint of danger on the wind, sensed something off in the way Haley moved among parties and boardrooms, in the phone that lay face down and glittered too long on the table, in that smooth tone that touched the border of flattery whenever Bill's name came up. Those stray observations, once meaningless, began to fit when Dany stumbled on Haley and Randy caught in a timekeeping error. No accusation was spoken aloud, but a plan rose in Dany's mind like a submarine skimming the seafloor. Should she strike and expose Haley now, or use her like a blade turned back into the hand that hit it? Teaming with Bill to trap Haley was a perilous choice because it forced Dany to face the tender weakness that lingered for the man who had once hurt her, and to accept that pride and love rarely walk the same road at Fairmont Crest. But Dany knew she could not let feelings steer this game. She chose a measured coldness. Widen the distance just enough for Haley to feel confident, create small stumbles that force her opponent to patch and mend, and at each patch point, Dany made a quiet mark. Then came the gala at the Fairmont Crest Country Club, where a glass of wine, usually mere stage dressing for toasts, became faded. Haley had grown sick of the showy atmosphere, yet she knew parties like this were the best cover, because everyone was busy performing perfection. The invisible agent she tucked into a glass wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to conjure an illusion, a fleeting spell, a dizzy spell, a calculated fall, a vague lab result timed to spark a dispute at just the right moment. The timing was plotted to the minute. The server's paths, Bill's habit when he clinked glasses. But the more intricate the game, the more variables multiply. Somehow a small swap happened on the tray, and the glass meant for another found its way back before Haley. She didn't notice. No one did. Only a passing glint in Dany's eye seemed to confirm the harshest thesis. The one who casts the net can be the first to be snared. The dizziness struck just as Haley believed she'd set the final stone. No one saw her hand tremble as she set the glass down. No one heard her heartbeat stutter. But the irregularity could not hide from those trained by the rhythm of scandals past. That tiny incident scored a fresh hairline crack in the wall Haley had built between herself and the room. In power games, the strongest isn't the one who wins fast. It's the one who endures when headwinds shred the plan yet refuses to change the target. For the first time, Haley realized she had never truly practiced that lesson. Elsewhere in the city, dawn did not arrive bright for Tomas the way it should have after a blazing night. Cat sat by the window, fingers knotting the edge of a towel, her mind spliced with images that felt both liberating and condemning. The night that should have begun a scorching romance instead turned into a mirror angled at the things she had avoided. The strange emptiness that rose at intimate thresholds her mind refused to admit. The thorn-like truth that her feelings might not be meant for men, or worse, that everything she'd done was a flight from another name, smoldering beneath her ribs. Tomas, brave-eyed and delicate, fell into a different pain, not from any visible wound, but from being dragged into the role of replacement in a play he hadn't written. A half-drunk, half-awake comment from Cat, a thoughtless slip of the hand, a sigh off beat, just enough to give his fear shape. He was not the destination. He was a bridge, a painkiller for a void that belonged to someone else's name. Tears find even steady men when they realize they've been placed in the wrong spot inside another heart. Here Tomas faced the harsh choice that protects self-respect. Withdraw to preserve what remains intact, or hold the line and demand a truer definition. For Cat, courage would mean stopping the blame shift, admitting the skew of her instincts and desires, admitting that some longings only bloom beside another woman, admitting that truth can be merciless because it frees by smashing illusions. Guilt wrapped her like a wet cloth, cold and heavy, forcing decisions that leave no room for half measures. Amid the adults' tidal weather, Tyrell moved quietly through his own maze, where an unfinished relationship with June drifted like a kite without string. He had chosen hesitation to shield himself from hurt, only to find that hesitation turning into a chain, binding him to circle unanswered questions. June appeared not as a storm that tears roofs off, but as a sleepless night that patiently sets stones of understanding on the table. Her advice was not a sedative that lulled Tyrell into an illusion of safety. It was a small flame touching what had frozen, pushing him to face what he had so deftly evaded. The fear of belonging nowhere and the shame of believing that being loved is a burden on others. June did not invoke his two fathers like judging silhouettes. She simply implied that love, without truth beneath it, curdles into disguised pity. Tyrell, for the first time, saw his second face clearly, both hungry and avoidant, wanting closeness and terrified of being seen whole. Her counsel would shock ears raised on pretty phrases. It sugared nothing, drew no rainbows. She asked Tyrell to choose one of two paths. Either step into commitment with courage and allow every scar and weakness to be seen, or step away so as not to drag someone into filling a void he isn't ready to fill himself. That bluntness cut the dangling tether clean, painful but pure, and in that pain, he glimpsed a way forward as these private lives shifted. The entire Fairmont Crest board did too, quietly but decisively. Smitty and Martin entered their post-engagement days not with music and fireworks, but with couples therapy appointments, with conversations about boundaries, about how to argue without ruin, about naming old memories so they stop commandeering the present. In the afternoons they practiced what seems simple. One speaks, the other listens without rebuttal, accepting that being heard is a way to be loved, and learning to listen is a way of loving. Yet each step forward drew counterpulls from a world intent on dragging them back with small, potent poisons. An old text resurfacing, a casual acquaintance misremembering past events, a photo miscaptioned online. Smitty fought the defensive reflex of the chronically wary. Martin curbed the habit of using silence as a slap. They learned to recognize that the enemy is not always outside. Often it lurks in the mirror they meet each morning. After the wineglass incident, Haley stood at a fork. Retreat to salvage what honor remained, or drive deeper, layering thicker, knottier plans to cover her tracks. On one hand, she knew the slip had alerted sharp eyes in the Dupree house, especially Dany's. On the other, she believed that a few more gates and the hoard would be hers, and then every rumor would sound as silly as breakroom gossip. But the best plan still loses to a bone-deep reflex on a tired night, and human weakness most rarely trained for fatigue betrayed her. Randy pressed to accelerate. The sharks had scented blood. Hesitation meant drowning. She nodded, though a slow cold seeped from her gut to her throat. She began arranging insurance terms, tucking small print clauses into addenda, shunting transfers into legal cul-de-sacs only professional diggers could follow. Bill, never fully hers even when he lay beside her, hovered like a dare that drove her forward. She pictured a future in which she no longer counted how often he strayed into memory, where she could breathe as a free woman unburdened by debt to her pride. The more she envisioned it, the less she noticed she was becoming the very cold version she had once despised. Someone who uses money as a palisade around a wounded vanity. By now Dany had enough threads to pull a counterstrike, yet she kept the tempo. Early victory doesn't change an opponent. It only tucks the winner into sleep. She wanted a win that reset the order, one the house would remember not for sums or names, but for a lesson in vigilance. She worked in parallel with Bill, a partner and a psychological trial she had to pass to win the war with herself. They built a refined legal trap, bright enough that every step would register, dark enough that Haley could see the path but not the blade. Numbers, signatures, timing, placement, each piece set exactly as the last tile in an inverted mosaic. When the picture was complete, Dany felt no gloat, only a thin, enveloping fatigue, because at Fairmont Crest every victory is paid in intangible tender. Against that backdrop, Tomas chose silence for a few days, not to punish, but to place his heart on a new map. He plunged into work as medicine, but work does not heal. It postpones. Cat's image flickered in his head like a corrupted clip. He tried to write their story with a generous ending. Two people growing along different roads. No villains. Respect all around. But each attempt brought a lance of pain when he remembered the feeling of being misnamed, however unintentional. That slip was like a drop of ink in a clear glass, clouding the whole in seconds. To respect others, he realized, he must first respect himself, and so the necessary decision formed, however it hurt. Either leave to keep his contours intact, or stay and demand a truth so thorough it might feel cruel. Every door opened onto a price. After speaking with June, Tyrell returned to an oddly calm house. He straightened posters that had hung crooked for ages, sorted the nameless stacks of books, tossed scraps of half-words, felt like shedding a skin. He wrote what he wanted, not in the language others taught him to use to appear fine, but in his own trembling tongue. He recognized he hated being seen as the son of two famous fathers before being seen as himself, that he was tired of praise-laced expectations that turned him into a mirror for someone else's achievements. For the first time, Tyrell didn't ask June what she wanted. He asked himself. The answer wasn't loud, but it was chillingly clear. He wanted a real chance, unwatched by the past, undefined by a surname, a chance where failure wouldn't be branded as a family embarrassment. June's counsel promised no smooth road, but it revealed a fulcrum. He knew he would surprise people, perhaps disappoint them, but this time the choice bore his own signature. As the day slid across panes of glass, Fairmont Crest lit up again. People entered dinners with calibrated smiles, raised glasses with measured gaze, speaking lines rehearsed in their heads to keep time. Pride, love, greed, fear kept quietly trading places like subterranean currents rechanneling beneath the ground. Smitty and Martin slid the deadbolt, left the noise in the living room, and faced each other in an awkward honesty, practicing the hardest lesson. How to be different when every old habit demands its turn. Haley gripped the stair rail, refusing to look down lest the vertigo hit, forcing herself to climb though her breath came short, because the responsibility of her plan had turned to chains. Dany stood before the mirror, searching her own eyes, wondering if one more victory would fill the small hollow she steps over every time Bill's name arises, or if that hollow is part of the terrain she must learn to live with. Tomas sat in his car too long before opening the door, because sometimes entering the house means stepping into a restricted zone where every echo will speak hard truths. Tyrell opened his laptop, deleted a half-written email, and decided that either live honestly or step away was no longer a slogan but a map. None of them knew who tomorrow would summon first into the next spiral. Only one thing was certain. Half choices had been swept off the table. Here, people learn that happiness isn't a prize for those who never err, but a temporary holding claimed by those who accept responsibility. Love matters only when it doesn't demand someone become someone else. Power always arrives with an invoice. That invoice might be a crack in one's pride, a long sleepless night, a swallowed tear, a mislaid wineglass, or a piece of advice that silences a room. And as the players of Fairmont Crest keep moving between arrows that point in opposite directions, each must decide what they're willing to pay. Smitty and Martin trading comfort to relearn love. Haley trading peace for a metallic-tasting intoxication of power. Dany trading ease to uphold an order she believes is right. Tomas trading illusion to keep his self-respect intact. Tyrell trading surface acceptance for a chance at truth. On that noiseless chessboard, no move is harmless. Each step makes a sound only the involved can hear. A knocking in the bones, reminding them they are alive, still writing their fate, and standing accountable for the consequences about to unfold. Somewhere behind those gilded gates, a new wind is forming, promising that schemes and struggles are far from done, that an engagement's happiness may be a destination or just a rest stop, that a lucrative investigation may open into a sinkhole, that one passionate night may be the mirror that shows two people their truest selves, that a timely piece of advice can alter a family's orbit. This world runs on such contradictions, and it is precisely those contradictions that keep people tethered, because here, every choice has a price, and every heart must learn how to pay.